I'm 77 years old. I built a $4 million company from nothing. I have 2 houses, 3 cars, and more money than I'll ever spend. And my son won't return my calls. He hasn't spoken to me in 4 years. And you know what? He's right. My name is Robert. I'm sitting here in my home office. The same office where I spent 40 years building my business. The same office where I made every important decision, except the ones that actually mattered. People look at me and see success. Retired entrepreneur, self-made man. But they don't see what I lost along the way. This isn't easy to talk about. But if my story can stop even one person from making the same mistake, then maybe, just maybe, there's a reason I'm still here to tell it. Let me take you back to 1978. I was 33 years old. I had a wife, Laura, and a 3-year-old son, David. We lived in a small apartment in Ohio. I was working 2 jobs, selling insurance during the day, driving a taxi at night. I was exhausted. But I had this dream. I wanted to start my own business, a real estate investment company. I wanted to give my family everything I never had growing up. Laura believed in me. She said, "Robert, if this is what you want, I'm with you." David was too young to understand, but I told myself I'm doing this for them, for my family. That was the first lie I told myself. The first 5 years were brutal. I worked 80-hour weeks. I missed David's 4th birthday, his 5th, his 6th. I missed school plays, baseball games, parent-teacher conferences. Laura would say, "David asked where you were today." I'd say, "Tell him Daddy's working so he can have a better life." But here's what I didn't see. David didn't want a better life. He wanted his dad. There was this one Saturday morning in 1984. David was 7 years old. He came into the kitchen where I was sitting with papers spread all over the table, studying market reports. He was holding his baseball glove, brand new, the one I'd bought him the week before. He said, "Dad, can you throw the ball with me?" I looked up at him, this little boy in his oversized Cleveland Indians t-shirt, eyes full of hope. And I said, "Not right now, buddy. Daddy's got work to finish. Maybe later." He stood there for a moment, nodding slowly, then turned and walked back to his room. I went back to my papers later. Never came that day, or the next Saturday, or the one after that. By 1990, the company was taking off. We were making real money. We moved into a bigger house. I bought Laura a new car. I told myself, "See, it's paying off. They have everything they need now." But David was 15, and he barely knew me. I remember one night he must have been 16. He came to my office at home. I was working on a deal. He stood in the doorway and said, "Dad, can we talk?" I said, "Not now, son. I'm in the middle of something important." He just nodded and walked away. I didn't know that was the moment I lost him. The thing about building a business is it gives you permission to be absent. It's socially acceptable. People respect it. They say things like, "He's a hard worker and he's providing for his family and he's building something." Nobody says he's choosing money over memories. Nobody says he's trading his son's childhood for a bigger house, because that sounds harsh. But that's exactly what I was doing. I just couldn't see it yet. By 1995, David was in college. University of Michigan. Good school. I paid for every penny of it. Tuition, room and board, books, spending money. I thought that was love. I thought writing checks was the same as showing up. He'd come home for Thanksgiving, for Christmas, and we'd sit at the dinner table making small talk like strangers. How are your classes? Good? Making friends? Yeah. Need anything? No, I'm fine. And that was it. That was the extent of our relationship. Surface questions, surface answers, no depth, no connection. Laura saw it. She'd tried to tell me. She'd say, Robert, he needs you, not your money. You. And I'd get defensive. I'd say, I'm doing this for him, so he has opportunities I never had, so he doesn't have to struggle like I did. And she'd just look at me with this sad expression, like she was watching me throw something precious into a fire and didn't know how to make me stop. I remember David's graduation from college in 1990. I almost didn't go. I had a meeting scheduled that weekend, an important client flying in from California. But Laura insisted. She said, Robert, if you miss this, I don't know if he'll forgive you. So I went. I sat in that stadium with thousands of other parents, watching these kids in caps and gowns cross the stage. When they called David's name, he walked up, shook hands with the dean, received his diploma, and he didn't look at us. Didn't scan the crowd for his parents like the other graduates did. He just walked off the stage and disappeared into the sea of students. Afterward, we took him to dinner. Just the three of us. Nice restaurant, expensive. I paid for everything, left a generous tip. David was quiet most of the meal. When I asked him what his plans were, he said he'd accepted a job in Seattle. 2,000 miles away. He was moving in 2 weeks. Laura reached across the table and squeezed his hand. I said, Seattle? That's great. Good opportunities out there. I didn't ask if he'd considered staying closer. I didn't ask if we'd see him. I just nodded and said it was great, because part of me, even then, was relieved. Relieved that he'd be building his own life. Relieved that I wouldn't have to confront the distance between us every time we were in the same room. By 2005, I sold the company for $4 million. I was 60 years old. I'd done it. The American dream. David was 30 by then. Married to a woman named Sarah. I'd met exactly twice. Had his own life in Seattle. We'd talk maybe twice a year. Awkward phone calls where I'd ask about his job. He'd give short answers, and we'd both pretend everything was fine. Laura passed away in 2016. Cancer. She fought it hard for 2 years. David came home during that time, more than he had in the previous decade. He'd fly in every few months, stay for a week, sit with his mother in the hospital, hold her hand while she slept. I watched him with her. Watched the tenderness in the way he adjusted her blankets, the patience in the way he'd wait for her to finish her sentences when the medication made her thoughts slow. The way he'd tell her stories about his life, about Sarah, about their kids, my grandchildren I barely knew. And I realized something, sitting there in that hospital room. David hadn't forgotten how to love. He hadn't grown cold or distant. He just didn't love me, not the way he loved her. Because she'd been there. She'd shown up. She'd known him, and I hadn't. One night, about a month before Laura died, I was alone with her in the hospital room. David had gone back to the hotel to sleep. She was awake, barely, the morphine making her drift in and out. She looked at me and said, Robert, you need to fix things with David, I said. What do you mean? Everything's fine. She shook her head slowly. No, it's not. And when I'm gone, you're going to be alone. Really alone. Unless you fix it. I told her not to talk like that. I told her she was going to be fine, but we both knew she wasn't. She made me promise at the hospital. Fix things with David, please. I tried. God, I tried. I called him, left messages. David, It's Dad. Can we talk? I want to make things right. Nothing. He was polite when we were together at the hospital, but there was a wall between us. A wall I'd built brick by brick over 40 years. Then, 4 years ago, he sent me an email. Just one paragraph. He said, "Dad, I don't hate you, but I don't know you, and I don't want to keep pretending we have a relationship we never had. I need to let this go. I hope you understand." That was the last time I heard from him. I've read that email maybe 1,000 times. I have it saved on my computer. I pull it up sometimes, late at night when I can't sleep, and I read it again, looking for some hidden message, some indication that he wants me to fight for him. But there isn't one. It's just what it is. A goodbye. A door closing quietly. Final. I sit here now, 77 years old, in this big house with all this money, and I'd give every cent, every single cent, for one more chance. One more chance to be at that baseball game when he was 7. One more chance to say, "Yes, son, let's talk," when he was 16. One more chance to choose him over a business deal. But I can't. Time doesn't work that way. So I'm telling you this. If you're watching this and you're 30, 40, 50 years old, and you're too busy for your kids, you're making the same mistake I did. You think you're building a future for them, but what they need isn't a future. They need you now, not someday, now. Your kids won't remember the house you bought. They'll remember if you showed up. Your kids won't care about your bank account. They'll care if you knew them. I was so afraid of being poor that I sacrificed being a father. And now I'm rich and I'm alone. I think about the version of me at 33, starting that company. So certain I was doing the right thing. So convinced that providing financially was the same as being a father. And I want to go back and shake him. I want to tell him that David won't care about the big house or the expensive college or any of it. I want to tell him that all David will remember is that his father was never there, that his father chose everything else over him. Over and over and over again. David has kids now. 2 of them. A boy and a girl. I know this because I looked him up online a few years ago, found his LinkedIn profile, saw a picture of him with his family. He looks happy. Older, of course, but happy. His son looks like he did at that age. Same smile, same eyes. I stared at that photo for a long time, trying to imagine what their lives are like. What kind of father David is. I hope he's better than I was. I think he probably is, because he knows what it feels like to have a father who wasn't there. And I can't imagine he'd do that to his own kids. I don't know if David will ever see this. Part of me hopes he does. Part of me knows it's too late. But if you're out there, if you're a parent who's just too busy right now, please hear me. Stop. Look at your child. Put down your phone. Close your laptop. And be there, because one day you'll be 77 years old, sitting in an empty house, wishing you could go back. And you can't. Don't become me. My name is Robert. I'm 77. And this is my biggest regret. The thing I'd give everything to undo. The one choice I wish I could take back, but I can't. So all I can do is sit here and tell you about it, and hope that maybe someone out there hears it and makes a different choice than I did. If this story meant something to you, if it made you think about someone you need to call, someone you need to show up for, then maybe there's a reason I'm still here to tell it.